Donnel, the way you put it is you're trying to turn buildings into Teslas. How exactly does the technology work?
Absolutely. So buildings right now burn fossil fuels for heating, for cooling, for hot water. Just like Tesla has taken the fossil fuel engine out of vehicles and replaced it with an all-electric engine, we can now take that fossil fuel heating, cooling, and hot water equipment out of buildings and replace it with 100% electric, clean, green, smart hardware and equipment that uses electricity to provide heating, cooling, and hot water. So we can totally electrify and decarbonize buildings.
Talk to us about the business model. You just raised $30 million in new funding. How do you plan to spend that money and make this a sustainable proposition for homeowners?
Well, we're going to go building to building across America. There's 125 million buildings or around that across the country, and we need to decarbonize all of those buildings because buildings represent about 30% of U.S. greenhouse gas emissions. And so we know we have to decarbonize buildings and move them from fossil fuels to electricity in order to reach our climate goals. And so Blocpower, we use machine learning, statistical modeling, the latest and greatest tech from Silicon Valley. We borrow money from Wall Street. We purchase the clean energy equipment. We loan it or lease the equipment to building owners so that they can afford it. We lease it to them over time. We save each and every building owner money, and they repay us out of the savings that are generated because our systems make buildings more efficient and more profitable. They generate savings so that building owners can repay us for upgrading to clean energy systems.
You're based in Brooklyn, and I have to ask about that devastating fire that killed 17 people. The thought was that a space heater was left on for days, perhaps because there wasn't enough heat to heat the entire building. Could your work help eliminate the need for this supplemental heat that we know can cause fires?
That building fire was a terrible, terrible tragedy, and our heart goes out to everyone who was impacted. The building actually had a bunch of complaints. A lot of tenants and residents called the government to complain about a lack of heat, and that's why there was that need for supplemental heat. But unfortunately, in buildings across the Bronx and buildings across America, the energy systems are inefficient, they're old, they're outdated, they're unhealthy, and in too many buildings, energy systems are death traps. They're unhealthy, they're dangerous, and you will see the kind of dangerous and unhealthy impacts as we see here. I grew up in a building like this in a low-income community back in Brooklyn and Bed-Stuy when it was a really low-income community in the 80s. We didn't have a functioning heating system at all, and we would heat our apartment by turning on the oven and open up the oven door and letting the heat from the oven heat up our apartment, and then we'd open up the windows to release carbon monoxide and all the toxins that were coming out of the oven. And so in far too many buildings across America, there's millions and millions of Americans who have old, antiquated, inefficient systems, and those systems are dangerous. We think that by upgrading these buildings to modern technology, it's 2022. We shouldn't be burning oil and gas in basements and using space heaters to heat buildings. We can use modern, cutting-edge, cloud-connected, high-efficiency electric devices to green all of America's buildings.
You also teamed up with the City of New York to create more than 1,000 jobs in green energy, hiring at-risk workers. What does that mean? And talk to us about how this initiative will work.
Yeah, so as part of the COVID recovery and COVID response, the White House allowed cities to use COVID response dollars to actually train and hire folks from high crime communities to do green construction work, to be trained, to be employed, to go building to building, to install internet antenna to help close the digital divide so that children could learn remotely, to install solar panels, as we're doing on a project in Staten Island today, to decarbonize the building's heating and cooling systems, as we've been talking about. And so we've created this civilian climate corps by hiring 500 adults from the highest crime communities in New York City. So in the Bronx and Harlem and Jamaica, Queens and Brownsville, Brooklyn, we hire these folks, we train them to go building to building and do green construction upgrades that hopefully will help to prevent fires and other kinds of dangerous outcomes like the building in the Bronx.